All right, friends. Let's look at how the for loop for our recursion would look like for this problem for combination. So what we have here is we're going to start at a unique offset every time, and we also have to be careful about what we are adding at each step to our partial. Right. So if we look at this branch here every time. So at this offset, like so I'm right now at offset 0, and I'm adding the uh, the the next value for the next level. So once I've chosen an offset, every time when I proceed, I increment the offset by 1, and I'm adding the the current offset to this. So which is fine. So A with B and with C, which gives me the current offset that is getting added. But when we look at the next iterations, so the for loop as at offset A, B, C, which is 0, 1, 2 at offset 2, right? So this at this offset, then I gets incremented and we add D and then E, right? And then once we return back, right? So once we return back to offset that was at offset 1, right? So we were done with offset 2. So once we were done with offset 2, we go back to offset 1, and then we have to realize that at offset 1 here, right, we had chosen B as our partial member for the subset. But now I is going to be incremented, right? So for this particular iteration, so I will be incremented, and then we'll go to the next. Then we are done with this branch, right? For this particular A and B, right? For this offset for this particular offset right here, right? Which is offset 1, right? This is offset 0, right? So for offset 1 now, my loop is still continuing. So I is incremented, and now I am selecting AC, right? So now I'm selecting what is the next value. So basically I'm selecting whatever is I currently pointing to, right? So to begin with, I points to the current offset, but then as the for loop increments, I get the next character, which is pointed to by I. And then uh, for the successive iterations, if you look at this, I'm going to select what is the next after I. If I've selected C, then my only choices are D and E, which is after C. So I is whatever is I pointing to, it has to go after I. So so in our recursive for loop, right? So we have a for loop here which would say int I equals to offset. So we at every offset, right? And then I should be less than n, and then plus plus I. So we iterate over all the elements in the range. So what we are doing here is we are going to select for partial. So partial is partial plus s of I, right? So initially I would be offset, but then as I increments, we're going to select the next one. And for the next character in our subset, we have to select the next value after I. So that would be I plus 1. Right? So the offset would be increased by 1. So those are the two major points that have to be careful about. And the rest of the things remain same, which is S and which is K. S is our input, K is our subset size, and this is the partial that we're building, this is the offset, and then we pass in the result. So the rest of the things pretty much remain the same, and then we call our, let's call this combination function, and it's going to return us the desired combination. Right? And the loop for ending this remains the same. So if partial of size is equal to k, which is my subset size, then I store partial and I return. Right? So partial and return. And so if we observe this again here, so to begin with, I will be zero, so offset is zero, and partial plus s of I, which is zero, is a. So I get a, and I go to this branch, and then I say I plus one, I is zero, so that this next one will be one. So then I start with b, and I take what is so the current offset would be for this. The current offset is zero. Now the current offset is one. So this iteration is starting with one, index one, and then I select that. And then for this iteration, the index starts with two. So the offset is two here, and so now we have A, B, and C. And once we collected A, B, and C, the partial will become equal to the size of the subset that we need, and then we return A, B, C. We store A, B, C, and we return. And then this for loop is going to say, okay, I'm currently at offset 2, so I'm going to start from there. So now I'm going to increment it to 3. So just a second, I'm getting a call. Okay, let's continue. So yeah, basically when I'm at index, well, when I'm at offset 1, uh, I have collected for this particular offset too. I've collected A, B. For this branch, I've collected A, B, C, D, and E. Right? So A, B, C, D, and E I've collected, and then I go back to my offset one here. And now the for loop would be incremented, and I would collect partial of S. Partially will be added S of I, which will be C. Right? So this is so then now I'm going to continue from this particular I. Right? So I is equal to 2 here, and the elements that I'm supposed to pick out of that are after C, right? So the only choices I have is after the C, so these two variables. So that's how if you see and look at this code here, it's going to follow pretty easily. And let's program this and see how it looks in